right, welcome back, peeps, to another wonderful, glorious episode of the World of Ted, where we explore how single Latter-day Saints can learn, live, and love truly enjoyable dating. Last couple of weeks we've been looking at Old Maid Mormon, and so I thought, there's not much more to her blog here, so let's just go ahead and just wrap this up this week, and, package this with a nice little bow. So let me start this up here. And we can finish this out. So here we go again with Old Maid Mormon. Singles telling a new story. Again from 2016. She really hasn't kept up with it. And that's okay. I mean, people just ran out of steam. That's actually normal. What's normal is to do, what she's done here, which is to write a little bit and then just kind of goes away, tapers off, fizzles out. It run out of steam. That's actually normal. So I'm not criticizing her at all with that. Anyway, let's dive in here. So I recently came across 3 powerful and uplifting articles. Tell singer members why chastity only gets harder in singles at the temple, as part of an Put It to blog series entitled Single and Married in the LDS Church. Written by this regularly featured author who sets heartfelt essays on staying active in the church as a never married mid-single, and the challenges we face really struck home for me. I encourage everyone to go to these links and read all the articles in this series. Yep. Well, we've actually looked at these 3 articles, past episodes of The World of Ted. So if you haven't caught those episodes, by all means, go check them out. Okay, let's see what we got here. In her first article, Suzette gives singles a challenge to tell a new story and share it with other members, that everyone might be strengthened in their testimonies of Christ. As single members who struggle to remain active in a church that celebrates eternal marriage and family, we are painfully aware of our label as the square pegs who just don't fit into those perfectly round eternal holes. No one takes us seriously. Well, it feels like no one takes you seriously. Again, remember, this was 2016. I think, there's been some marked changes in the landscape since 2016. Then, as I've noticed multiple times, more so on the Join the Journey radio program than on the World of Ted, well, I've noted it here too, is that change is in the air. The brethren are aware, and they're trying to move the culture to a better place. So, to say no one takes us seriously, I mean, I'm sure that a lot of us have felt that way, but, there's hope that change is going to come. We are the outliers, the single points distant or separated from the main group for various reasons, yet singles should not let the condescending remarks and attitudes of the marrieds bother them. This is not an us against them debate. Our unique positions and lifestyles in the church give never married singles the opportunity to grow and increase in wisdom, especially in our unique relationship with God, our family, friends, and with ourselves. See, this is where I'm going to differ. Because instead of trying to console ourselves with, some booby prize and say, well, look at what we have. I mean, we're here on the outside, but look at what we have on the outside. Look at what we have as a consolation. My approach is going to be like, well, okay, be grateful for what you have. Sure, I'm down with that. I'm digging that chili. At the same time, I want cheese on my chili. So, I'm going to go back and say, well, wait a minute. Why am I on the outside to begin with? And when I find out it's culture, and that culture is something that marrieds and singles, all of us are actually doing things to perpetuate it, then I'm going to be like, okay, why don't we change the culture? Because the culture's the problem. We're trying to fit in where we, by definition, don't fit in. So let's change the culture so that we can fit in. It just boggles my mind how everything in the gospel is centered on Christ, but the gospel, culture that we have isn't really centered in what the gospel is centered in. The gospel is centered in Christ. Everything in the plan of salvation is centered in Christ. And yet, the culture that we have as Latter-day Saints is centered in being married with kids. It's not centered in Christ. if we're centered in Christ, then the mark of belonging would be, are you making and keeping all the covenants that you can? The mark of belonging would be discipleship and not marital status. I just have a different approach to this. Singles in the church who are active yet never married have a unique understanding of loneliness. Living the chaste, wholesome life required by the gospel is not easy. Oh, true that. Everything we do, every choice we make, including abstaining from premarital sex, which the world scoffs at. I'm thinking what you mean to say is they're scoffing at our abstinence. They're not scoffing at premarital, because they're all about, So there it is. It's done without fanfare, without supervision. Gone is the cute, naive teenager. We stand on our own testimonies now. Survivors! Living life as best we can, as fully grown adults. Entirely on our own. Somehow I got Tina Turner, singing in my head when I hear that expression. On my own. Anyway, I digress. We face solitary daily work and household chores, yet find time to serve and socialize with our friends. Most of us returning home every night to an empty residence. Well, honey, that's why you need to get you a cat. A cat, especially one who's like a social creature. Get one of those social breeds. Siamese are good for that. They're a good social breed. There's a few others as well. Get you a social cat, right? And then, the cat will just be waiting for you when you come home. That makes a big difference when you have somebody who's happy to see you, even if it's not a human. Get you a cat, woman. And, as long as you've been single, you're practically a cat lady anyway, so it'll fit right in. I'm sorry. I should be a little more compassionate, but I couldn't help it. The door was wide open. I couldn't help myself. It's okay, because while you're being a cat lady, I'm sitting here, I want to be a cat man. Oh, there we go. Oh, I love it. We're having joy in our journey here in the world of Ted. Okay, here we go. We worship ourselves as sitting alone. Yet find joy in fulfilling our church callings, traveling, spending time with friends and family, pursuing new interests and hobbies, obtaining all the education we can. This is not the life we would have chosen for ourselves. Well, not directly, but you did choose it indirectly through the choices that you make. See, if you choose not to align yourself with the fundamentals of the dating journey, you're choosing to get either no results or poor results. Depending on, that's your choice. You're choosing that. So while you may not be making a choice like, on a voting ballot to say, I'm going to check the box next to, let's stay single. You may not be doing that, but you are choosing attitudes, perceptions, ways of thinking that lead to words, that lead to actions, that then produce the results that you're getting. So, not the life you would have chosen for yourself, not consciously, but you are making choices that lead you to the results that you have. Or even our worst enemies, it wasn't supposed to be this way. Everywhere we go in the church, after all, the individual ordinances have been met. Baptism, gift of the Holy Ghost, and temple ordinances up to a point, we are reminded that those who lack the final, crowning achievement in our eternal progression, temple marriage, remain incomplete. Well, okay, again, you're responding to the culture. But if you look at the gospel, specifically like in the temple, when you get to the celestial room, there is no like special little ante room where only the marrieds get to go. Everyone's in the same place in the end. So I think there's a lot of meaning and significance in that. And you seem to be overlooking that while you're in the same sentence where you're mentioning temple marriage, you're all focused on the culture that's not necessarily based in the gospel and true principles, and you're ignoring, what actually goes on in the temple, which is based on true principles and the gospel. So I think some adjustment up here is in order. This puts us in a very unique situation that isn't always acknowledged by church leaders and teachers or even family members. Again, this was 2016. Times have changed. Thank God for that. According to Christine Haglund, we live in the borderlands, a lonely place in the church where individual outcasts wander all by themselves. It's not as depressing as it sounds. Our solitary confinement gives us... Solitary confinement. Right there with that choice of expression, I can tell you have a victim mentality. This is half your problem, honey. It's all up here in your head. Individual outcasts wander all by themselves in solitary confinement. It's not just the choices of others that have brought you where you are. It's your choices. And even if you want to focus on the choices of others, let me tell you something. 90% of the time, people make choices regarding you with respect to the approach that you give to them, how you carry yourself, how you present yourself to them, how you choose to interact with them. These are all choices that you make. So even if you want to go back and talk about other people's choices, it all still links back to your choices. You'll never adopt a victor mentality as long as you're looking for what's outside your control. Bring your focus in to what you can control, right? Because your focus determines your reality. So if you want a reality where you feel like you're in control of your life, then you need to focus on what you can control. Because as long as you keep focusing on what you can't control, then you're going to have a reality where you're going to feel helpless all the time. That's just the way the universe is built. So instead of fighting it, just align yourself with it, and you'll find yourself having a lot more joy in your journey. I guarantee you. See, where are we? Solitary confinement gives us the unique opportunity for greater understanding of what Suzette calls peaceful or sacred holiness. Finding wholeness in our incomplete state. We are not broken. And just because we lack spouses doesn't mean we are unlovable. In our lonely places, we reach out to God and come to know His love, peace, and virtues more intimately. We are made whole by this close connection. Well, I think there's some truth being conveyed here. It's only in adversity that we come to know God. And so, for a lot of singles who have to endure a phase of loneliness, and it's like, okay, I'm in this phase of life that's, filled with loneliness, but I don't know how long it's going to last, and that's part of what makes it a trial. But it's in adversity that we come to know God, and this just happens to be our adversity. I mean, everyone's going to have their own brand of adversity come into their life. So, clearly Old Maid Mormon here, is, what she call herself? Michelle the Great. Michelle the Great obviously has this conception, and she's not alone in it. A lot of singles have it as well. Where, what's the best way to say this? I'm just going to say that, we tend to think of the world based on what's immediately around us. And that's perfectly normal. Lots of other people do the same thing. So you're sitting there and you're thinking that life will just be grand if only you could be married. There are a lot of married people who are looking at you and envying you in your situation because they wish they weren't married because, they're connected to an abusive spouse or, they have a spouse that isn't necessarily abusive, but they're trying to have children and they can't have children. Adversity comes in many different flavors. The world really is Baskin and Robbins, 31 flavors. Everyone's got their own. So, we all have our own adversity, but when it comes down to it, whatever brand of adversity you have, whatever your flavor is from the 31 shop, it's only in that adversity that you will come to know God. And so instead of running away from it, you really need to go back the other way. Think about it in reverse. Instead of trying to escape it, run towards it, embrace it, and learn to love. And that's where you come closer to God. And that's why I say there's some truth being conveyed here in what's being said. In my mind, I'm suddenly picturing never married singles again, she's always talking about never married singles. Honey, there's plenty of divorced singles who are experiencing pain and adversity. There are plenty of, widows and widowers who are also single, although they're in a somewhat different situation because they don't really think of themselves as single. Many of them are like, I'm still married. Why would you invite me to that singles activity? I'm so offended. I'm still married. I mean, so there's a little different situation, but yeah, I mean, look, honey, I'm just going to say this right now, okay? If your spouse is not living with you, okay, then you're single. This is what it is. You're just single, all right? And technically you're still married, but okay, as long as you're not living with your spouse, then you're single. So, yeah. That's all I'm going to, Forrest Gump moment. That's all I'm going to say about that. That's all I have to say about that. Let's see where we are. Never married singles in church is these awesome robed and hooded Obi-Wan Kenobis, medieval and wise holy men and women of the desert, to whom all the Luke Skywalkers seek out for wisdom and advice. Those who have found peace and wholeness in their solitary confinement need to share this information with the world. Well, there are ways that you can maximize your joy, irrespective of your circumstances. That's what Joy in the Journey Radio is all about. So, we got the train here, honey. Hop on board. It's a wonderful ride. Let's see what we got here. Singles should own their borderland spaces. Yeah, not only that, you should own your life. Every aspect of it. Own your life. That means you take responsibility for it. You don't look at your singleness as solitary confinement. That just leads you down the road of being the victim mentality. And you'll never be a victor as long as you think of yourself as a victim. So, if you want to turn this around, you can. You just got to get, this up here, let's see, where are we at? We can tell a new story of how our testimonies and understanding of the nature of God has been increased through the peaceful holiness we've achieved, through our years of learning how live happy and fulfilling lives without being married. I think we're missing something here. I think we're missing, I think we only have half of our infinitive verb here. I think we're looking for, through our years of learning how to live happy and fulfilling lives without being married. Yeah, again, that's what Joy in the Journey Radio is all about. Well, I've seen more acceptance and understanding towards singles in the church. Singles still need to claim our borderland spaces, making them our own by telling our stories, for Zion's borders must be enlarged. I'm not quite sure that's what the Lord had in mind when he told the prophet Joseph, Zion's borders must be enlarged. That might be resting the scriptures there, honey. Let's see what we got here. As an unmarried single with no children, loneliness is an adjective I am all too familiar with. The challenge of how to endure loneliness without becoming increasingly bitter, especially towards God, is a personal trial, a challenge I face daily. Peaceful holiness is a nirvana I have yet to achieve. I'm no Obi-Wan. That's clear. But I'm trying. I acknowledge the unique blessings that come from living the law of chastity, but temple attendance for me is hard. That's because of the way you're thinking about it. Change the way you think about it, and it'll become really super easy. I guarantee you. I find myself challenging Elder Holland's reassurance in the recent face-to-face event that young single adults in the church are loved. Well, again, that goes back to the way you're thinking and how it is that you're thinking about how love is given and received. And if you change your thinking on that, this all just becomes easier. I'm telling you, it just becomes so much easier. Look at me. I don't seem miserable. Do I seem miserable to you? The proof is in the pudding. I'm the biggest evidence for what I'm preaching to be true. I'm the biggest evidence because you could see it. I'm in command. I'm in control. I'm not going to say I don't have my moments, right? But that's life. Everyone's got their moments. But generally, I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky, sort of optimistic kind of guy. And you can see it in the way that I compose myself, the way I hold myself, the way that I interact. So everything I'm talking about here on, Join the Journey Radio, World of Ted, totally true. I'm living proof of it. You can have joy in your journey regardless of your circumstances. It all happens when you change what goes on up here. We are not loved, Elder Holland. That's why we're single. Oh, see, here we go. Okay, you think that being loved means being married. See, you're wrapped up in the cultural mindset, the culture that we traditionally had that's centered on being married with kids. And because you don't belong, because you're single, because singles by definition are not married, so how can we belong when, we don't, by definition, we don't have what we need to belong. So, how do we fit in? The answer is we don't. But being loved is different than being accepted by the culture. It's different. You're not distinguishing it. You're getting it wrapped up as one and the same. And again, you need to change the way you think up here. It is then I must pause and reflect, as the Spirit reminds me of the many people in my life who mean so much to me and I to them. I realize I am loved. Exactly. See, now you've got the Spirit coming in and trying to give you truth so you can align yourself with true principles and free yourself from the pain and the burden that comes by clinging on to false principles. My nephews tell me this all the time, as well as close friends and family members. I am grateful for the many opportunities I have to serve others. Since quitting my food service job, which required working Sundays, moving back in with my mom and stepdad and finding part-time work, I would have no reason to keep attending church if I wasn't allowed to keep my records and continue to attend my old ward with my married sister's family. For me, church attendance is just too painful when you have to sit alone. Again, it's in how you think about it. You get the right approach, you won't ever really be alone. You may not be sitting next to anybody, but you won't feel alone, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. It all comes back to the way you think up here. So it's just too painful when you have to sit alone, so I'm grateful to have people to share a pew with. I still don't know why I was never blessed with a career that would allow me to use my 2 bachelor degrees so I could live more independently. Oh, I can tell you why. The marketplace will pay you what it thinks you are worth. So what are your bachelor degrees in, honey? If one of your bachelor degrees is in basket weaving and the other's in art history, not a lot of demand in the marketplace for those, skill areas. So, what are your bachelor degrees in, and then, even if you get something like, let's say, you've got one of those bachelor's degrees is in math and the other is in engineering. Even in that type of scenario, you still might find yourself unemployed because, again, the market pays you for what you're worth. And You're actually worth something when you can solve people's problems. So it's not the credential that gets you a job. It's your ability to solve problems. And that's where you get the job from. You get the job from, helping people solve problems. That's really all it comes down to. It had nothing to do with credentials. Or why I was never asked to my high school prom. Well, okay, join the club. I wasn't asked either. It's not just because I'm a guy. I mean, in my high school, there were women who were asking men. I mean, it went both ways. So, yeah. But, I mean, it's high school prom. I mean, it's like, so what? I mean, yeah, that was my attitude going into it. It's like, I don't care about this. So, no one was going to ask me and I was going to ask anybody else. And I was okay with that. Here I am all these years later. I'm still okay with it. Go figure. I still don't know the reason why I was born. What were my places in this world? Oh, gosh. Now we're just taking everything to an extreme. Or maybe not. Maybe you really do feel this way. You just feel so lost, like you don't have any purpose. Again, let's go back to one of the principles we talk about on Join the Journey Radio, which is get yourself a personal ministry. And if you don't know what that is, go to the Join the Journey Radio website and go to the blog and type in personal ministry. Or it's actually one of those tags. It's a category down there for the blog posts. And read up on what personal ministry is. And it'll make a big difference in your life, I think. But I'll continue to pay my tithing, sing in the ward choir, and spend time with my nephews who bring me such joy. What I have learned being single is this. When we stop to count our blessings, we don't feel so alone and ostracated after all. That is the only cure I know for combating loneliness. Keeping busy with work and hobbies and spending time with those we love. Well, that's just a Band-Aid, honey, because you're not actually solving the real problem. You want to solve the problem with combating loneliness? Go to the Join the Journey Radio YouTube channel, and there we have a number of fireside presentations. Go watch the fireside presentation that we give on loneliness and conquering loneliness. Because what you're suggesting here, it's a good start, but it's not the whole tamale. There's more beans in your enchilada than what you got listed here. I continue to wait upon the Lord. That's my story. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we're really out of time, but there's only 4 comments here, so let's see what the comments have to say. Okay, that looks like a bot. Sugar Daddy Dating says, good article to unleash how older women dating sites have been the trending scenario. She didn't even mention dating sites. What are you talking about? Okay, you're a troll. Henry Bima says, I was not married until I was 40. You are correct. It is an ongoing struggle. Not be overcome with bitterness and anger against others who are so seemingly blessed, against God who seems to play favorites. And, to make it worse, no one understands you except those who are in the same boat as you are. I had some very good advice from a preacher once. He told me to read through the Gospel of John, and whenever it says believe, you highlight it with a yellow pencil. The only way I got through the tough times as a lonely single unperson, as the world sees you, actually that's how you see yourself more than how they see you, is to meditate on the life and sufferings of our dear Lord. I pray that Christ strengthens you and find true peace in holding on to his unchanging hand. Okay, but it still doesn't address the real root of the problem, which is the way that you think up here. And nothing's going to change until you do that. Then what we got here? Lord Mark. Okay, this looks like another bot thing. So, and yeah, that's all we got there. So, yeah, that's pretty much what we got there. So, align yourself with your principles, people, and your journey comes out a lot easier. You have a lot more joy along the way. However long it takes you to get to your end destination, you have a lot more joy along the way if you just align yourself with your principles. It's not hard, but you got to step outside yourself, change the way you think up here, willing to do the work, make changes in you, and then things can come out a lot easier. So that's the end of this episode of The World of Ted. Thanks everyone for watching. And, if you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button and leave a comment down below if you want to carry on the conversation. And we can continue discussing these wonderful topics. And, and so until next time, see you later. This is the World of Ted signing off. We explore how singularity saints can enjoy truly enjoyable dating. See you next time.